Welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast, where we take you inside our gym, CrossFit Palm Beach, each week. It's here that we are creating new superhumans every day, transforming people's lives, helping them reach a level of health they never knew possible. We strive to answer your most burning questions on fitness, health, nutrition, training, motivation, mindset, lifestyle, and more. If you have a question, please email us at info@crossfitpalmbeach.com. You can also learn more on our blog, livingsuperhuman.com. And if you have a moment, we'd love a review from you on iTunes. All right, it's time. Let's stop being average and start living superhuman. All right, guys, welcome to the show. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about essential CrossFit gear, and then we'll hit on some non-essential CrossFit gear today. So first question is, what do you guys feel is the most essential piece of equipment that everyone should have?
Athletic tape.
Athletic tape, ooh. Can you elaborate?
Yes, I can. Well, for your thumbs. You know, if you don't have it, I think, well, first, you don't want to be that person that has to ask for it. It's just one of those things. You don't want to have to ask somebody for tape all the time.
So you need your own athletic tape.
You should have your own athletic tape, probably multiple sets, because you should be wearing it every single day here in CrossFit, unless you know you're doing something where you're not touching a barbell. If you're touching a barbell, you should have tape on because you should be doing a hook grip for most movements. And if you're not, then that's probably another topic, but that's, you know, essential in moving a barbell and cycling a barbell and establishing a good grip and good pull is having a hook grip. So you should always have that taped up in order that you can do that every single day. If you're trying to do it without tape, it's probably not very, very comfortable, and that's why you see every person that does CrossFit, or that all your better athletes and Olympic lifters all have it on every time.
Nice. Can you elaborate on what the hook grip is specifically and what movements it's best for?
The hook grip is when your thumb is underneath your middle and forefinger on the barbell, and it's to secure a better grip, take tension out of the forearms, and produce a better pull in all of your Olympic lifts, clean and snatch, and just all pulls from the floor.
Yeah, specifically anything related to a hang. Once that bar starts going overhead, it's not quite as necessary, but when you're clean snatches in that bottom position, that bar is hanging, that thumb's going to be locked in. It's going to be a tighter grip. What else? What's your essential CrossFit gear, Brendan?
I like the Olympic lifting shoes, but I only like them for specific movements. So I really like them for any type of squat you do, if it's a pistol, if it's a front squat, back squat, overhead squat, squat snatch. The clean and the snatch are definitely, they benefit you a little bit more just because you're moving a lot more in the movement, and so you can be put off balance, and so the Olympic lifting shoe helps you sit back on the heel really well so you can gain the balance.
Yeah, what are some movements that you wouldn't wear lifting shoes that you've seen people maybe wrongly use those lifting shoes?
Running. You don't run with Olympic lifting shoes. That is the absolute no-no. Rowing, there's no benefit really. Box jumps, I try not to do box jumps in Olympic lifting shoes just because they're a little bit heavier than your normal shoe. Jump roping, kind of similar to running, like it's a really heavy shoe, you shouldn't be jumping around in those. A lot of the body weight movements it doesn't necessarily help with. So the one body weight movement that I do really like them for would be pistols though. Very essential for pistols.
Yeah, if you're close to getting a pistol and you throw on lifting shoes, that usually can be that thing that puts you over the edge for sure. Even compared to like a shoe, which we'll probably talk about in a second, like a Nano or a Metcon, a lifting shoe is going to give you an extra 10 or 20% of range of motion, especially if you have tight ankles or tight hips. Also, we see a lot of people put on lifting shoes for deadlifts, and it's not really necessary, especially if you already have a pretty good CrossFit style shoe, a flatter shoe. Lifting shoes are not really going to help you because they're going to raise your heel, put you a little bit towards your toes on a deadlift, rather than wanting you to sit back a little bit more in those heels. So it's best for squatting movements, as Brendan pointed out, like all of our barbell squatting movements and especially those pistols. What else? Steve, what's your essential CrossFit gear?
I think if I can just branch off from the real essentials like shoes and shorts, hopefully, and
Wait, we have to wear pants at CrossFit?
sometimes, and maybe just look at the individual and what the athlete's needs are. Like myself, I've still got a pin in my wrist from a motocross injury, so a wrist wrap is a pretty essential piece of equipment that I like to have with me, especially if it's overhead squatting or snatching or some of the stuff where it's load bearing, pushing down on my wrist. And I find that's something that's really important to have so I can move better and feel more comfortable. And I think that's something that varies from person to person. Maybe there's an old knee surgery or something that's going to make you not only move a little bit better, but also know psychologically, okay, this is kind of spotting me a little bit. It's got me if there's a weak spot or if there's an area in my body that's tight or uncomfortable, that piece of equipment is going to help me mentally before the WODs even started.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that's where probably most of the confusion around gear comes, is we'll see other people wearing a wrist wrap or a knee sleeve or something around their elbow or whatever it might be, and then we kind of assume that we need those things. I think the wrist wraps are a big one. You having still pins in your wrist, right, Steve? Yeah. Steve has pins in his wrist, so a wrist wrap for him becomes one of those essential gear components, whereas for someone who is snatching or doing front squats and they feel wrist discomfort, and that leads them to buy a set of wrist wraps, that's usually not the reason why you want to do it. If you have a history of injury there, or you're feeling, you're feeling pain that's beyond just the normal level, then you want to address that. But I would actually address that not with gear, but more from a warm-up flexibility standpoint, rather than trying to essentially put a Band-Aid on it with a set of wrist wraps or a set of knee sleeves, something like that.
Yeah.
I think the belt sometimes falls in that category, although it is for some people extremely important to have a belt on if you've had a back injury, and you've sustained some sort of injury there. You need to protect your back and keep that stable. Yes, that might be an essential piece of equipment for you, but I see a lot of people that they see the belts on and they're like, oh, let me get this cool new belt, and then they're wearing it at 95 pounds doing their warm-up deadlifts, tempo-style deadlifts, and for strengthening of the back, that's probably not essential for most people. If you have an injury, that is something you need to take care of and make sure it's, like I said, stable, then you will probably be wearing it all the way through your workout. But for somebody who's never sustained a back injury and you're looking to strengthen yourself, especially in those Olympic lifts, you have to, not rely on the belt at such an early percentage in order to build some strength.
Yeah, what I've seen a couple times is people wearing the belt and not thinking about still engaging their body in the right way. So if we take a deadlift, for example, the belt's on, all of a sudden it's an excuse to kind of push your belly out into it and relax your stomach and let the belt take that, rather than still keeping engaged and allowing the back to support you. And I think there's something to be said about what equipment you're using and knowing how to still use your body as efficiently as possible, rather than just relying on a piece of equipment to let you kind of find chinks in the armor.
Yeah, for the belt specifically, I like to see people use it really, if we're doing like a strength dedicated workout, really it's maybe that last set of the day. It's that heaviest set of the day. You just need that extra layer of something to kind of brace into, but you've practiced 5 to 7 sets building up in weight of practicing the correct technique and practicing bracing your abs, bracing your back muscles, your obliques, to get those muscles firing around the spine. So it's really just that added insurance on your heaviest set, rather than a way for you to compensate in your movements in the early sets. I definitely don't like to see people do it in their early sets, no matter how bad their history is with back stuff.
And in some movements, let's take the snatch for instance, if you're wearing a belt where it's a little bit bulkier and the bar needs to be as close as possible for that movement, sometimes that can get in the way of the lift. And another side note off that is like talking about when you're warming up your sets, I would try not to use your belts up until like 70 or 65% when you're warming up. So warm up, and if you're not feeling good at that point, at 65, 70% when you're warming up, then you can slap on the belt and then work on your set or whatnot, but try to steer away from that when you are warming up or when you're below those percentages.
Yeah, I think kind of sidelining there with like not relying on a piece of equipment. I think that's kind of a mental shift I've taken, trying to not rely on my knee sleeves or rely on the belt, or I can't lift this certain amount of weight unless I have X, Y, and Z in place. Because as a performance athlete and somebody who wants to compete, you never know what you're going to face. And you might not be in a situation where you can just go and put your Ole shoes on and your belt and your wrist wraps and whatever, and you might be in a situation where you're just in your running shoes and you need to do a max lift. That could occur if you're a competitive performance athlete. And so I think just being able to mentally be ready for that situation and not have this mentality that I need to rely on X, Y, and Z to be in place to do my best is sort of the mentality I take. And for me, when I think about like an essential piece of gear, I think about like, all right, when I travel, what do I make sure I have to have, making sure that I can do CrossFit wherever I go? And it's just a pair of shoes. Like, as long as I have a comfortable pair of shoes that have a relatively flat sole for myself, I know I can lift in them, I can run in them, I can rope climb in them, and I'm gonna be set. That's the only real, true piece of gear in my mind that I need to take with me. Of course, I take all those other things too, because I feel like they can really enhance your training and make you a better athlete. But I think really just embodying that mindset of not becoming reliant on something to be better.
Yeah, I think that's true on the competition side, and then also your everyday person as well. On the competition side, I think I think of like a jump rope, a specific jump rope you need. Like, yeah, we're talking about, like, I could bring up the CrossFit Games. The CrossFit Games, everyone I'm sure had a jump rope they wanted to use, and then all of a sudden they bust out a heavy 3-pound rope that they all had to use. So in that case, they had to be ready for anything. Or I've seen this with a lot of our local competitions, is people go with the jump rope and it breaks while they're warming up, or it breaks out on the floor and they have to use a different jump rope. And because they become reliant on that one thing, it's just this mental like breakdown even before they've attempted to use that other piece of equipment. For the everyday person, a lot of us are doing CrossFit because we want to play with our kids, or we want to be ready for anything that comes our way. So if you need to, take 20 minutes to strap up to do all these things to go play a round of golf or play with your kids, take that mindset into the gym as well. Like, you shouldn't have to be able to do all these gear things in order to perform at the things you want to do. Another one that I thought of too is, I see this with the weightlifting bars as well, especially with our women who are used to using that smaller grip bar. A lot of them are very adamant about always getting a 35-pound bar. And I think if you have a day where the goal is to PR your snatch or PR your clean and jerk, then yeah, get one of those 35-pound bars. But if we have a deadlift day, then be ready for a different stimulus. Try a different piece of gear, a 45-pound bar, or maybe every once in a while we'll call for a fat bar or something like that. It's okay to have a little thicker grip because it's going to be a different challenge, and it's going to prepare you for different elements that are going to happen in life, as well as different elements that may happen at a competition where you may have to lift a men's bar.
And even though all these things we're saying they're essential, they're not essential for every day. So you're not going to strap on your Olympic lifting shoes, your long socks, your knee sleeves, your belt, your eyeliner, your helmet, your mouth guard. Like, you're not going to strap them all up.
I thought he was wearing eyeliner.
I got my eyeliner on right now. We just got done working out. But you're not going to fully load yourself all in that one day, every single day. It's just when you are squatting that day and you have your Olympic lifting shoes, then you put it on. Or if you're going for one at max, put on the belt if you want it. Like, it's not every day, all day.
The one thing when it comes to equipment that I first noticed when I was racing motocross and became more and more involved with racing, and it did kind of travel through into CrossFit, is over time you get ready to go and ride, or you get ready to WOD, and you're like, let me see what it feels without wearing a chest protector, or without wearing elbow guards, or knee sleeves, or whichever discipline you're relating to. And both scenarios, when you start decluttering like that, majority of the time I felt, I can move a little bit better, or I don't feel as hot, or I don't feel as claustrophobic. And with something as simple as leaving your knee sleeves off if it's not a heavy lifting day, or the wrist straps if you're not going overhead, or I don't have to wear a headband that I saw Rich Froning wear. That's so good. It's amazing. But that declutter helps you feel a lot more free, and that ability to move around definitely helped me with both disciplines and kind of learning how to use my body as efficiently as possible.
Definitely. I wanted to talk deeper about what Whitney brought up, as she said the only thing that she needs for competition is a comfortable pair of shoes. And I think when we have our newer athletes, most of them come in with more of a really soft sole traditional running shoe. And I would say that's probably, if you ask me the question, what I feel is the most essential piece of equipment, I would say that first and foremost, if you don't already have some sort of minimalist, versatile style of shoe. So just to kind of go over that, two main shoes that we see in the gym. Reebok makes a shoe called the Nano. They have different designs of the Nano. And then Nike has a shoe called the Metcon. And those are a little bit flatter soled shoes. They have a little bit harder sole than most of your traditional running shoes, and make it very good for squatting, box jumps, just an all-around good shoe for CrossFit. And I would say that's my personal favorite, the one I would recommend most for most people that are starting out in the gym.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Nano fan. I've tried them both, but I think that either one is going to give you an opportunity to climb a little better on the ropes, probably land a little better on off the box jumps, and then also having that flat feel when you're doing Olympic movements, and we're cueing you to get in the heels or get into a position on your foot where you can't necessarily feel in a really soft running shoe. You can't feel those things in the contour there. So. I think I would totally agree. It's a very important item.
All right, let's talk about hand protection. All right, a lot of people in CrossFit, pretty much all of us have ripped our hands at some point. How essential is hand protection, or is it just more badass to rip your hands every day?
It's more badass to rip your hands every day. It's very important. It is. I mean, building up that dexterity in the hands is very important, but that's going to happen with everything that you're doing. You're not going to wear, like for example, a natural grip, like a gymnastic grip. You're not going to wear that for everything you do, but when you're doing high volume gymnastic work, like pull-ups and muscle-ups and things like that, yeah, a lot of times you should have it on, especially if you're doing a lot of reps. Just because tearing your hand is not going to be great for the next day and the day after that. So you want to keep your hands as, I've heard from a lot of different either Olympic lifters or athletes that keeping your hands healthy is probably one of the most important things that you can do for your progress in the sport.
In CrossFit, I don't know anybody who hasn't ripped their hands, so it's going to happen eventually. Obviously, you want to limit how easily it happens. I personally use the gymnastics grips. I think those work really well for me. Like Zach said, the natural grip is really good. There's other brands out there that are really good as well. But also, like we said, with the essential equipment, try not to use them one day and see how you feel. Or, even though I use my gymnastics grips, more times than not, I don't use anything. And sometimes I just take care of my hands, or I just rip off the little calluses I have. I know it's disgusting, but it works for me. And I don't rip my hands too often, but it's bound to happen, and just take care of your hands if it does happen.
I agree. I don't use any grips, but that works for me. It doesn't happen to work for everyone else, but I would say that would be my second most essential piece of gear, is like a callus shaver or a pumice stone or something like a file that's going to take care of your calluses. I use mine all the time after I shower, before I'm getting on gymnastics bars, if I know I'm doing a lot of barbell work, if I paddleboard and I have a callus I have to take care of. For me, just being able to take care of my hands, make sure that they're washed, clean, and like my calluses are shaved down is really important. And I didn't ever think that I would need to be responsible for my hands that way, but you are, and it helps not only benefit what you can do in the gym, but obviously what you can do after. So if you rip in the gym, like it sucks to drive, it sucks to
Wash your hair.
do anything. Yeah, it sucks to wash your hair. So like if you're able to take care of that in the gym, then you're able to just continue living your life awesome afterwards.
Yeah, like to her point, if you continue to take care of your hands, you don't need to have your grips all the time.
Yeah.
Like I probably don't take care of them enough, and that's why I need them, because I have these big calluses that have grown over and can rip off. Where you know what you're talking about, you're pumicing them down or shaving them down, you're going to be able to keep that just a lot smoother, and you won't have that dead skin to pull and yank off.
Yeah, there seems to be a good delicate balance between developing the strength of the hands so they can withstand something, but also not constantly taking it beyond that point to where you're ripping. I think for most barbell work, you don't need any hand protection. What we're talking about mainly is hanging from the bar specifically, and usually it's kipping pull-ups, muscle-ups, or toes to bar. Those are really the three big ones you would need it. And I would just really like to see people be proactive with it, so you don't always have to start every workout with it, and I would recommend trying to get through most workouts without it, but always having a plan to switch to something. And I think we see a lot of the same people that whenever there's more than 30 pull-ups or 30 toes to bar in a workout, they consistently rip, which in my opinion, that's not a lot. I think you really should be ripping around the 60, 70, 80 plus range. I know some of our athletes here, our coaches here, won't rip unless they do 100 of something. But I think if you're constantly ripping in that 30 range and you're not doing something proactively to add a pad to your hands or add gymnastics grips, then that's where you really need to make that essential for you.
I managed to wean myself off it over a number of months.
Those are a tough couple months, Steve.
Oh, well,
Couldn't be around him.
so I fell victim to going out and
This just got so depressing.
okay, so I went out and I saw everybody was using gymnastics grips, so I have to get a pair of gymnastics grips because that's the CrossFit way. That was my outside perspective, and started using those, and I was still ripping the top part of my finger, like right
Where it connects, right?
where the finger goes into the hand.
Yeah.
And then I would be putting on gymnastics grips, then taping my fingers and taping my thumbs, and I had to have this little cluster of leather and tape before I could touch a bar, and it worked for a while, and then managed to kind of break away from that, and then ditch the gymnastics grips, then eventually ditch the tape, and now it's at a point where you don't really need it. And again, it's that decluttering that's kind of once I weaned myself off.
God for that.
There's something to be said if you're reliant on something, again, trying to pull back and not use it as often, and it's better when it's just a 3-2-1 go, and you can trust in your own body to comfortably and securely get through something without in the back of your mind, oh, I don't have this, is it going to be okay, type of thing.
A lot of like novice CrossFitters, they come in here and they always ask us like, can I wear my gloves, or like their traditional gloves that they have like the finger cut holes in them, and or like a lot of women say like, well, I'm gonna get calluses, I need to wear gloves. Like I almost think that's gonna be like a worse thing, because they're gonna probably hang on to the bar for longer periods, and they're gonna build up the calluses even faster. What do you guys think about like a glove or anything like that?
I'm not a fan of gloves unless that's your thing for hanging on the bar. I don't like really anything for barbell work except for what Zach mentioned earlier, which is that tape around the thumbs. I think is something that's essential for the hook grip. But
I've even seen people fall off the bar with the gloves on. They just can't solidify such a good grip because it essentially they have so much layered in between their hand and the bar is now thicker, and they just can't hold on to it, and sometimes they'll come back and maybe they don't have that kip swing quite as well as they should, and they get back into it and it comes right off. I've seen it happen, and that's just a risk you run when you wear gloves on a bar and you're swinging on it.
What is your take on the padded foam that you just kind of hold in your hand that we have available?
So that's my go-to. That's something we provide for the members to use. A lot of people complain about not feeling like they have a strong grip with them. I have very notoriously tiny hands, the size of a little bear cub. So, so for me, if I feel like if I can use them, then most people can use them to some degree. And my take is that's where I become proactive is basically if I do a big set, I look down at my hands, they look good, I'll do another set. And then at the point where they start to kind of feel like they're about to go, I'll grab the grips, and that will kind of give me another 20 or 30% to my workout without having to worry about ripping.
I think it comes down to that. If it's comfortable for you and you don't rip at the end of the day, that's probably your best bet.
Yep. So let's talk about another piece of gear. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
You hang up.
I was just gonna say I was gonna say extra socks. Like having an extra pair of socks will really having an extra pair of longer socks that are always in your bag, because you never, unless you're always religiously checking the board or checking the site, you don't know if rope climbs are coming, so having those because you don't want to be that person that doesn't have them, or having an extra pair of socks all the time, just because if you're like me, they're soaked after one workout, and then you walk around and it's like you're walking through water, and that's the worst feeling in the world to work out in.
You might be Jesus.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Rope climbs was the next topic, and we used to not try to program rope climbs on Mondays because we wanted to try to help people out. They could see the week in advance, but now you'll see them a little bit more often as our members have become a little bit more adjusted and prepared. So that's definitely an essential thing. Maybe you don't need to wear it every day, but you definitely need it in your gym bag or your car, and not just the one you used 2 weeks ago, but hopefully it's a fresh sock. All right, so what about chalk?
Can I jump in on just that sock real quick?
Oh yeah.
Jump in the sock. What I find works even better than a sock is just using my knee sleeve around my shin. That way, if your knee sleeves are packed, I'm not saying go out and buy a pair of knee sleeves for rope climbs. That's not the idea. But if you have a pair of knee sleeves, just keep it on your shin, and that's I think even more support than just the material of a sock. You've got a little bit of padding in there, and you can really hammer out rope climbs. Pretty good at that.
So you convert one piece of equipment into another.
Boom.
Mind blown. All right, so back to the next topic, chalk. What do you guys feel about chalk?
Why are you guys looking at me? I have a
Brendan's the chalk
incident.
Nazi.
Okay, here we go. All right. So, rule number 1, the chalk stays in the bucket. All right? The chalk does not leave the bucket. All right? So when you chalk your hands go in the bucket, chalk doesn't come out. All right? Rule number 2, use a necessary amount of the chalk, and don't LeBron James it out or pat it on yourself, all right? Just use it for your hands. That's what it's for. It's not for your chest or your butt or whatever, all right? Chalk is good, but too much chalk is bad. I think we've all seen that before, where it can get pasty, it gets a little gross, it gets on the bar, it can make the bar a little bit more slippery than it should be. If your hands are sweaty, then you put it inside the chalk bucket. That doesn't make it better, just as another clump of crap on your hands. I would actually get a little towel, that might be better, and then you could chalk up. What do you guys think?
I like towel than chalk. Best way to go.
Yeah, it's a good combo. Get the sweat off, get it dry, and then add the chalk.
Yeah. I wish I brought a towel more often. I always need a towel, and I don't have it. And the towel's a better way of, if you get everything dry, then your grip's gonna be better. You might not even need to re-chalk. A lot of times I don't need to re-chalk. I just dry off and I can go. It's sometimes adding the chalk in, it just gets to be a bigger mess.
Can also be a good reason to take your shirt off before you start sweating, because then you have a dry towel to use on your hands before getting the chalk. All right. One thing we don't want to use the chalk for is drawing your rounds on the rig or the ground. We have poker chips provided in the gym for counting rounds. Those are always nice. And what are some movements we don't need chalk for?
Running.
Maybe D-ball, ground over the shoulder.
No, we need it for that.
Andrew needs that. I don't know if you've seen him. He gets caked in his hair from that.
I think rowing, you don't necessarily need chalk.
No.
You could just use a towel if your hands are wet.
Burpees.
Jump rope.
Burpees I have seen a lot of. I think the burpees is probably the biggest
No.
criminal right there. Yeah, that's the
You
biggest
can
thing.
add 50 reps if you chalk for burpees. That's what you can do.
True story. Double unders?
Don't need it for double.
You could chalk the bottom of your feet for double unders.
Oh, that's a good one.
Only if you're barefoot.
Wow.
Wear shoes.
Let's talk about that. What do you think about going barefoot? We have a few athletes that kick off their shoes during a workout and don't wear any shoes. Are there benefits to going barefoot for certain movements?
I think for things like deadlift or practicing like the integrity of your squat or your squat mechanics, it might be really good to go barefoot. But in my personal opinion, doing a conditioning piece or a Metcon with a bunch of other people in the workout, maybe if you're by yourself, it's one thing, but if you're with a bunch of other people, you don't have control over what they're doing, it's very easy to have something fall on your foot and have a serious injury where you could maybe never work out again because something, that, to me, it just seems like a no-brainer. You just need to wear shoes in that setting. But I can also understand why you wouldn't wear it for certain things we do. But in my opinion, everyone should have shoes on.
I agree. I think the same thing. Like, you always want to protect your feet. I can understand it if you're doing maybe like deadlifts or like low bar back squats, but then comes to play like a flat-soled shoe or a minimal shoe would probably do you just as well, and it would still at least give you some protection over your toes and the top of your foot, which is like a super vulnerable place. What worries me and gets me the most is when people run barefoot, especially because we run outside, we run on the sidewalk, it's hot, it's next to pretty busy road, people throw stuff out of their car, like cigarette butts and glass bottles, and like just the risk to reward factor there is a little bit sketchy, and especially if you're running, like I love the idea of running barefoot, but I don't think we're in the environment that it's really safely possible.
So you could have years of great workouts barefoot, and then one day some person next to you drops the 45-pound plate off of their barbell and it lands on your foot, and you didn't see it happening. You have no control over whether that happens or not. You can't see it happening, and it happens to you, and then it's over. You can't work out anymore. It just takes one time for that to be a big deal.
Now, once you take your shoe off, your risk of injury definitely goes up. The movements that scare me are going to be toes to bar and box jumps. So personally, I've like hit my toes in the bar so hard that I've been bleeding on or inside my shoe before. And if I didn't have my shoes on, I'd probably like lose toenails all the time. All right. But then in box jumps, we've had countless times when people have tripped, and especially a couple years ago when we had one member, like a pool of blood on the floor from his shin, and then there's people, we did high box jumps the other day, like if people clip and they have no foot protection at all, like serious injury can happen, especially on the toe region, so wear your shoes.
I've seen with a couple of athletes too is mid-wad they'll kick their shoes off but leave their socks on, and I don't necessarily think that's the safest option. I think socks and no shoes is good for sliding down a corridor on a tiled floor. That's probably the best scenario. But if you're sweating inside your socks and the rubber mats that we have can get a little bit slippery and it's wet, it's probably better to either go barefoot if you don't want your shoes on, or just leave your shoes on to make sure you have maximum support and protection throughout that workout.
All right. I think we kind of hit on everything. Is there anything you guys want to talk about that we missed?
Essential piece of equipment, headphones.
Headphones, a non-essential piece of equipment.
Non-essential, but I would say they're essential. I need them.
I think if you're in a non-group training environment, that's really beneficial. Or sometimes I'll work out in the North Building and there's personal training going on or something like that, and I want to be in my own zone. Great to have headphones, but definitely not something you'd want if you're, in a class of.
Don't wear them during the class.
Yeah, so that's where I see it as an issue is we had people wear it in the class before. Every once in a while I'll see people do it for a longer running workout, maybe a day like Murph. I don't mind it quite as much on Murph, but when you're inside doing your push-ups, pull-ups, and squats and not running outside, you should definitely have those headphones on. I mean, one of the things you're paying for here is for coaching, for guidance, and all that stuff. So if you have your headphones on, you're not being a part of the group, and you're missing out on what you're paying for. So, and then the safety aspect comes into play that you can't hear someone directing you or talking to you. You could walk into a barbell, or someone could throw a kettlebell into you. You never really know if you have those headphones on. So there's a lot of safety reasons why you wouldn't want to have them on. But I mean, I think if you're training individually on your own, you're coming in Sunday open gym, it's a great piece of equipment to have, so you're not reliant on the group for music. Yeah, or your thoughts?
I think music in general is kind of a non-essential, more of like a luxury we get, and it's part of CrossFit. It's what makes it fun and exciting, and we get to share that with other people. But and I used to be one of those people too, like, what song's gonna be on, and I need to work out only to this music, and you don't want to have it where a country song is on, and then you go home and you're like, I had such a crappy workout because Brendan played the country mix, or something like that. I know, I'm just saying, I'm not speaking for me because I
Dom
love
said that
country.
Brendan needs to go to a music
I'm
cert.
all for it, but what I'm saying is that it's a non-essential, and
CrossFit have music?
and maybe we become a little bit too reliant on a song to get us through a workout, or a genre of music so we can perform a certain way, or sure, it enhances our mood, but we can also look at that as an opportunity to really not be distracted from the workout, or not be distracted from, wow, I really am negative towards myself. Maybe I need to work on that. Like, it's an opportunity to kind of like look at the process of what we're doing a little bit deeper, when we're not just focused on something that we might not like, or music, a taste of music that might not be motivating us that certain day.
Yeah, this is, a little off key, but going off of where you were talking about like the music and whatnot, if you can listen to the music and then talk to a coach and say, this music is not quite doing it for me right now, you're probably not working out hard enough. So pay attention when you work out and not to the music.
All right, let's wrap it up there. I think that pretty much summed up what we wanted to say. We'll see you next time.
See ya.